Hi, it's Miss Hall.
And Miss Nelson, and today you guys are going to be doing notes over analyzing circle graphs. We have dealt with circle graphs in the past with our financial literacy units, our budgets and things like that. But now we're going to remind you again kind of how to go back and compare part to whole and part to part comparisons of our data representations. So example number 1 says the graph shows the percentage of favorite single topping pizzas. A total of 250 students were surveyed. How many more total students were surveyed than preferred pepperoni? Okay, so the first thing you've got to do, we know how many more. So at some point we are going to be subtracting. But first I have to know how many students liked pepperoni, and I don't have that. All I know is a percentage. So we're going to use a proportion box to figure out what percentage the 30, or how many students the 30% actually is. So I'm going to set up 30 over 100% equals my x, and it says 250 students. So x out of 250. I'm going to cancel my zeros here to make it a little bit easier. So now I'm going to cross multiply. So I have 100x equals 250 times 3. You should get 750. So when I divide by 100, oh, I'm sorry, it's dividing by 10. Sorry guys, I forgot over here that we canceled, so those are not there. I was wondering why I was confusing myself. Okay, so sorry, I divided by 10, so now I can cross out the zero. So x equals 75 students that liked pepperoni. So now I'm ready to come and plug that into the next piece. So I want to know how many more, so I'm going to take my total of 250, and I'm going to subtract the 75 students that liked pepperoni. So I have 175 students. So 175 more liked everything else other than pepperoni. So a second question, a total of 250 students were surveyed. What fraction of the total number of students prefer mushrooms as their favorite? So we're looking for a fraction. So I know that I want mushrooms over the total. My total here is 250. I don't know again how many students are mushroom. So I've got to come over here. I know that it's 20% from up there. So if I do that proportion, 20% over 100 equals x over 250. Again, crossing out, and this time I'm going to remember that I did that. Now let's multiply. 10x equals 500, because 250 times 2 is 500. Divide by 10. So I get 50 students liked mushrooms. So if I simplify this fraction here, I can get rid of my zeros. That gives me 5 out of 25. If I divide that by 5, that gives me 1/5 of my students prefer mushroom. And a quick side note, you should have looked up here and known that 20%, well, you should know that 20% out of 100 is always going to be 1/5, just like 25% is always going to be a fourth, and things like that. But here's the math to actually prove why that is. Our last example, a total of 300 students. They've changed their number. We're surveyed. What fraction of the total number prefer cheese? So cheese over total. Now this time my total is 300, so they changed that up. And cheese is 35%. So again with our proportion, 35 out of 100 equals x out of 300. You can simplify this. I'm not going to, because I think it confuses some of y'all when we do that. So I'm going to multiply as is. So 300 times 35. So you get 10,500. So 100x equals 10,500. Divide by that 100. And x equals 105. So 105 out of my 300 like cheese. So I'm going to simplify. I'm going to divide by 5. That's going to give me 21 over my 60. I'm now going to divide that by 3, and that gives me 7 Out of 20, 7 and 20 have nothing in common, so that's going to be your final answer, 7/20.
Okay, example 2, we have another circle graph, shows the percent of automobiles registered in parts of the United States in the recent year. A total of 79 million automobiles were registered in the United States. How many more automobiles were registered in Texas than in Florida? So it wants to know how many more, so we're looking at Texas and Florida. So we have 23% of total automobiles were registered in Texas. Remember, when you want how many more, you're subtracting. So we have 4% more. So then I'm going to set up a proportion. My percent goes here. We know that our 100 goes here whenever you have percent. 4% more. We have 79 million. I'm just going to use a 79, and then we're going to add a million behind it so we don't have to do all those zeros. And we're looking for how much that is. So I'm going to cross multiply. So I have 100x equals 79 times 4. I'm just going to come up to the top and do my multiplications. 28, 29, 30, 31. So I have 100x equals 316. I'm going to divide both sides by 100. Remember, when we're dividing by 100, we talked about all you have to do is move your decimal place over twice. Those hundreds go away. X is 3.16. So we have 3.16 million. Remember, we didn't want to forget that million. More cars are registered in Texas. Okay. Now we're dropping down to our next part, which is a total of, again, we still have our 79 million automobiles registered in the States. Write a ratio that compares the part of automobiles that were registered in New York to the part that was registered in California. So remember, when we talk about ratio, we said it was really important to notice what came first. And then we're going to express it as a fraction, a decimal, and a percent. So we have, they ask us about New York first, so we're putting that. So 14 to, or I actually like using the 14 to California, 44. Okay, so that's our ratio. We wrote our, so now we want to express it as a fraction. And remember, we put 14 on top, 44 on the bottom. I'm going to simplify. That as far as I can simplify, because there's nothing in common between 7 and 22. So we have the ratio, the fraction, we need to do the decimal. Top and bottom out. 22 does not go into 7. We have to add a decimal and a 0. 22 goes into 7 6 times. That'd be 3 times. It'd be 66. And we have a remainder of 4. We're going to add a 0. 22 goes into 40 only one time. Just want to reset. Okay, I'm going to bring another 0 down. 22 goes into 180. Let's see. I'm thinking 8. Let's try 8. See if that works. 16. 16 plus 1 is 17. I have a remainder 4. So we see with the remainder 4, it's going to go back up here to the 1. So this 1 8 is repeating. So our decimal over here is 0.318 with a 18 repeating. And in percent, we're just going to move that decimal over twice, right? Remember? And so it's going to be 31.8%. Okay, and it asks us to express this, explain. And so if you were asked to evaluate that or interpret that, you would say for every, I'm going to write it, I'm out of room, sorry guys. For every 7 cars in New York, there are 22 cars. I'm just going to put in, is it California? Mm-hmm. Yeah, California. So that's how we interpret it. Now, a total of 79 million automobiles were registered in the United States. How many more automobiles were registered in Florida than in New York? So we're looking at how many more. Go back up to our, so we're looking this time at Florida and New York, is that right? So how many more we're subtracting? So 19 minus 19% minus 14%, we have 5% more. Now you can set up a proportion here, I talked about this earlier, or you can just multiply your 79 million times 0.05. Two decimal places. So we have 3.95 million. Don't forget, we're doing those a million. More cars are registered in, where do we start? Florida? Than New York. Don't forget to interpret. If they ask you to interpret, make sure you glue these into your spirals. Come tomorrow with any questions.
Okay.